Okay, so welcome to this new episode of error solving. Today we have a new error called error cannot be solved, and it's an Android error. So it's quite a common error, but we've managed to explore a few solutions here. And if I told you follow them and some recommendations from the people from the community, and of course try to describe different experiences from different people, the way they have experienced the error in different ways. And finally we have an expert solution from an expert advisor on how to solve this error and for all and for good. Okay, so we start with a post from a member in a community that just downloaded and installed the new Android SDK, and he wanted to create a simple application to test, to just test. And the wizard created, that's the code. And so let's move on and expound on the error. So we happen to first of all talk about the error causes. The error cannot be resolved is a common error, and this message typically occurs in Android Studio when there is an issue with the automatically generated R.java file. So this file is actually responsible for managing the resources in your Android application, of course search layers, strings, and of course images. So if you look at the number one causes, it's the SDK version. So if you're using an outdated or probably unsupported version of Android SDK, this would automatically cause the error cannot be resolved error. So you have to always make sure that you're using the latest version of the Android SDK and that your build tools and target SDK versions are all compatible. That's number one. You have to make sure that that is at least the baseline or the bottom line that you have implemented in your IDE. So two, which happens to be a little bit common, but also of course and mostly people who are using Android Studio, is the Gradle configuration. I have a few videos about Gradle configurations and the errors about Gradle running and all the errors that normally come with the configs and the Gradle. You can check on my video and see the Gradle errors and how I managed to solve them. So the Gradle configs, your Gradle config, if it may be incorrect or incomplete, which can of course also cause the error, cannot be resolved error. So you have to make sure that the build to Gradle files are configured correctly and that you have the necessary dependencies and plugins to run the project. Okay, so we have another error which could come with probably it could be a corrupted installation. That's in rare cases, of course. Some people who don't know how to install plugins in Android Studio, and of course, so installing the Android SDK, it may be corrupted in one way or the other, and finally, it may cause the error cannot be resolved. So that one is actually in rare cases. Then we have the ProGuard setting, which also happens in rare cases. So if you're using the ProGuard to obfuscate your code, it may be removed and the error causes of course an issue, and so you have to make sure that its configuration is correct and it's not interfering with the error class of your project. And of course not forgetting the memory issues, which happens to be the disk space and the rest that could also cause. Okay, so let's look at some solutions from our community, what people are suggesting, what people want to do, one exactly are they doing to solve the same error. So this guy says whenever you get the error, check the rest directory, and there must be some files that have some error in it. So you check the rest. He says check the rest. Whenever you have this error, you have to check the rest directory. That's what he says according to him. So probably you can check out on the rest, on your rest directory, and see if there is any error on your rest. And if at all you can fix it, you can fix it. So, and probably that error is preventing the application from building. So for example, if it may be a layout file, or maybe due to some missing resource, or you already defined it in the XML file, so could bring the error cannot be resolved error. or if you have any addition, even unusual or unreferred images in the image folder drawable using the API, which cannot comply at the file naming convention. So make sure that you really check on these issues before you proceed. Okay, so the array is actually automatically, as you all know, generated class that holds the constants used to identify your sources. So if you don't have the R.java class, it would be something that you wouldn't want to understand, mostly for people using Eclipse. And I would recommend that closing and reopening your project, or going to the project builder and rebuild automatically, it would create the R.java file and then correct the error. So this is according to this guy from the community. Well, let's move on and see. Another guy says, by closing all files, cleaning the project, and restarting Eclipse, that's if at all using Eclipse as your idea, it would work perfectly and correct the error. So another one says it is actually worth checking in your Android manifest, the same thing that we had seen previously when we had somebody saying that the story is something to deal with the manifest or something in the rest, something like that. So this guy says it's worth checking the Android manifest.xml. So the attribute package has the correct value. So you have to check in this manifest and make sure that the attribute value, the attribute package has the correct value. And after you've done that, the error.java will be regenerated automatically, and he assumes that the error will disappear. So let's look at another one. Another guy says, make sure you have installed the Android build tools from SDK Manager. And he goes ahead to demonstrate how it's done in the picture, or of course by right clicking on the properties, then Java build path, select library, and then add Android support or Java, and then the following steps, of course. Go to project properties, Java build path, and blah blah blah, and make sure you rebuild your Android build tools from the SDK Manager. Okay, we can move on to the other solution. Another guy says, he just had this problem for a millionth time. Can you imagine? So this really shows how common this error is. The guy has had this error for, he thinks, of course it's an irony, for a millionth time. So that means so many times, and he realized that it was causing it. What I realized, of course, he finally realized what was causing it. So he therefore goes on to say, I created the XML file with the uppercase letters in the name, and all your XML files in the race must match that. That's what he says. And say, goes ahead and say the simplest solution sometimes you just need to save the XML files you are working on to get the auto generator to kick in. Okay, so you have to save the XML file. That's what he says. Save the file, the XML file, and then delete the R.java file and see if the regenerated file resolved the issue. He says that save the main.xml file, then delete the R.java file, and then it will be regenerated and the issue will be resolved. That's what he's saying. Okay, now look, another possibility is you may need to update or install SDK tools if at all you have not updated. And then after doing that, you relaunch the Android SDK Manager again and reinstall the new items, and probably the error will go. Those are all suggestions from the community. People are free to suggest everything, probably the way they've expounded on it, the way they've solved it. So they are really sharing with us their experiences about the same error, and we're gonna have to check out and probably try them out and see if they work. So probably I'm assuming that you're clearly taking time to try out all these possibilities. Probably one could be working for you, and if at all it doesn't, don't run away, don't be mad. Just make sure that you stay on until we reach the expert area where we have an expert solution, and that must be or must resolve the error. Now this guy says you must need to update the SDK tools and relaunch Android SDK. Pretty much they're all saying the same. and reinstall the Android SDK build tools. Pretty much the same, Often this is because of the mini SDK version number you supplied when creating the project. Example, if you want 2.1 to be minimal, so Android 2.1 is actually the API level 7. So you can see what I'm talking about. When you browse the SDK you download and install the navigation place, you install the SDK, blah 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 blah, and finally it goes on to say when you create a project you must create a build target. That's API, of course, that's known for Android SDK. So he says this probably is the most common error: incompatibility of the versions of the API and the minimum SDK, blah blah. Okay, the next one says just go to the Android top menu list and just review the projects. Can you imagine? Simple as that. No wasting time. Try out that and see. Review the project fast. Simple things fast. Another guy says in case anyone is interested, he can go ahead to narrate his solution because he had the same error. And solution, he says it needed a new folder in a race. Oh my god, XML, and the file called that in then was okay. Then just in case you have not gotten the file, it goes ahead to show the file that you're gonna be using. Probably that could work for you. Now, enough of the community, let's go on and expound on the expert advisor. Okay, now possible solution from the expert advisor. So he says here are a few possible solutions to this problem. Number one, check your XML file. Sure that you check your XML files. Pretty much the same that we've seen in the previous community solutions. The R.java file is generated based on the contents of your XML files. So if there is an error in one of your XML files, it can cause the error cannot be resolved error. So look for any errors or warnings in your XML files and fix them before you proceed. 2. Clean and rebuild your project. Pretty much the same. Almost everyone has been talking about the clean and rebuilding of the project probably could solve the error. Sometimes error file can get out of sync with the project. So clean and rebuild the project and probably that can fix the error. So it goes ahead to show you how to do this. Go to the build, clean project, and then build, and then rebuild project. Solution number 3, check your package name. Make sure that the package name is your manifest, Android manifest.xml file. Matches the package name in your Java file. Now this is important. The package name in your Java file must match with the package name in the Android manifest.xml. And if they don't match, that probably could cause the error cannot be resolved error. 4. Check your imports. Ensure that the import statements for error are correct in your Java files. They should look like import com dot your package.name .error. If your import statement is incorrect or missing, this could cause the error cannot be resolved error. Check on your name conflicts if you have any unresolved conflicts, blah blah blah, and that could also cause the error cannot be resolved. Let's expound and match solutions, and it goes ahead to say check for missing resources. If there is a missing resource in your project, this can cause the error cannot be resolved error. Make sure all resources are present and correct. Hopefully one of these solutions will resolve your issue, and if not, try searching for the specific error message in the Android Studio log guide to get more information about the problem. And thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This is actually your channel, that's why I'm calling it your channel. Don't forget to subscribe to your channel, and of course to support us so we can continue making research about these errors and more videos, and probably you like the video and share. Thank you for watching. See you next time.